Hello and welcome back to the final episode of the Rally project. I will be finishing this car this episode. It will be finished. I've done a few bits to the electronics just to speed this process along. I'll show you them in a minute. But thanks for watching so far. It's been a lot of fun building and recording. So here we go. Okay, so jobs done off camera yesterday. We're replacing the JR connections from the old ESC to Futaba to fit into the new receiver, and I've also calibrated the ESC and the receiver to the new 2.4 GHz Opsima radio system. I've also replaced the wheels from the Fastrax Rally Blocks wheels and tyres to some gold ones that go better with the body shell, and I've also purchased a new battery. 4,500 mAh should increase running times no end from the rubbish old batteries. So without further ado, let's get on with the final episode of the Rally project. Okay, so the first job in this episode is to waterproof the receiver completely using these receiver extension wires from eTronics. Okay, so to waterproof this receiver completely, I've put the extension wires into the receiver to create one solid unit and dumped the whole thing in the Plastidip, a good old Plastidip. Created a loop so that it can hang between these two glasses so that it can dry. So I'm just going to dunk this whole thing in to waterproof it. I'll do this twice just to doubly make sure that it's completely covered and dunked. There you go. Just let some of that drain away. It does dry quite quickly and forms like a skin, which you could then mould. So that's all the excess off. Just move that around, and there you go. Oh, a bit more. So that's now one solid unit that's completely waterproof. No water can actually get into the receiver and damage any of the electric circuits in there. So I'll let that dry and I'll move on to the ESC. Okay, so while the receiver is drying, I'm going to waterproof the ESC. The first job is to cut off the switch wire and cross the wires so the ESC will always be on, and when they plug the battery in it will be on and it won't turn off. So first job is just to cut the switch wire, don't need that anymore, and cross these wires just there, and that will make the ESC be on all the time, and when I plug in the battery the RC car will come on. When I unplug the battery the RC car will be off. Okay, so I've stripped the wires of the insulating plastic, and all you need to do is just twist them together like that. It completes the circuit, and then dunk that in the Plastidip. Oh, it's a little bit short, like that. And now this ESC is on, even though the battery isn't plugged in, but when the battery's plugged in it will be on permanently. Next. Okay, so I did dismantle the ESC beforehand, and that is all the stuff that came out of it. Grass, gravel, sand, bits of plastic. Not pleasant and not good to be in an ESC of a radio control car. And you can only imagine how much water would have got in and caused damage to the ESC. So that's why I'm doing this waterproofing, or water resisting. So next up is to dunk the whole ESC into the Plastidip. Now doing all of this will void warranties and all that legal stuff, so it's at your own risk, but that's the fun of the hobby. Okay, so I'm just going to remove the heat sink from the ESC. You don't want to cover this up because this will dissipate the heat created by the circuit. It's important to dunk pretty much all of the ESC in, all around the electronic wires and circuits and all the solder, just to make sure that it's fully waterproof. So just pull this off, and that is an ESC with the capacitors, various diodes and CPUs and all that interesting stuff. So next up is to dunk this in the Plastidip, so let's go. Okay, so it's time to dunk the ESC into the Plastidip. Tied up all the wires again so I can loop a pencil or a pen through there and hang it between the two glasses I've got. So I just want to make sure I cover all of this, all of these circuits in here, get down all those gaps, make sure no water gets in at all. So let's go. Okay, so dunking it now. I will do two layers of Plastidip just to make sure that everywhere is covered. But as you can see, the Plastidip isn't really getting into those areas there, so what I've got to do is just get my finger, but I'm wearing a glove again for this, and just sort of dab it in there. It would all sort of sink down into the ESC. So it's got another coat to go after this is dried, and then we'll be ready to mount it into the car. Okay, so while the ESC is drying, I'm just going to waterproof the battery. It's covered in this film type stuff that encloses all of the battery except these ends. It's like a shrink wrap. So I've just got to waterproof around the cables and around the various open areas. Just quickly. I'm going to do this with a finger, with a glove on, just so I don't get this stuff on me. It's not, I don't think it's toxic, but it does form like a film, like old PVA glue from school, and I don't want to get that on my finger really, because it's not very pleasant. So just cover this in a light layer of the Plastidip, like that. I don't want to dunk the whole bottom end in, otherwise it will make it wider and it won't fit through the hole for the battery, for the holder for the battery. So just quickly do this. So that's that end covered. I also do the other end. Just dab it around. This will probably void the warranty of the battery as well, so it's at your own risk. But the battery was fairly cheap anyway, it was about £27, so not too fussed. Like that. So a thin layer around both ends should, don't quote me on it, but should waterproof it. So I'll let that dry and then we'll start putting the electronics in the car. Okay, so while everything's drying, there's a lot of drying in this episode, I may as well show you the wheels and tyres that I have. Originally I had the Fastrax rally blocks, wheels and tyres, but the wheels didn't really suit a rally sort of theme, so I boiled the wheels and tyres in water to release the glue. It took ages, and I don't know what glue they used, but it was very sticky, and re-glued these gold wheels and the foams and the tyres together. They look really good. I've put loads of glue on so that the foams don't get wet when going through water and snow, because that will make the wheels very heavy and make the motor work even more. So they look pretty good, and I'll tell you a bit about the controller as well. Okay, so this is the Absema CR3P. It looks really good actually, it's one of the best looking transmitters out there. Simply turn it on by pushing this button. You get this nice blue display. I've already given the model a name, WRC, because it's obviously a WRC car. It's very simple to use, just press that button there, gets you into the menu. Really easy, really nice display. It's difficult to do this with one hand on the controller and one hand holding the camera, but yeah, you can do all sorts of trims and various settings for the car, and it will store it for each different model. So this will be my main radio system. really nice foam on the wheel as well. So yeah, definitely recommend it. It was about £60 from Model Sport. I'll list all the prices and how much I've spent in the video description box. But yeah, definitely recommend it. It's been easy to use so far. I haven't used it outside yet, but for initial startup and sort of for a beginner, or for anyone really, it's a really good radio system. The drying station. Okay, so just a few little bits while everything's drying and sort of curing. You may be wondering whether I put oil in the shocks, and the answer is I haven't yet. I'm waiting for all the electronics to be in and everything to be on so I can get what kind of weight distribution there is in the car, and so I can put fluid in that's going to benefit the car. Don't want to do it when all the weight is out of it and have it bottoming out and damaging the chassis. So that's one bit. I'll be doing that off camera because it's fairly self-explanatory and it's different for everyone. And also, you may remember the Hex Nuts just here. When I was putting them on, they were just sort of coming off and spinning around, but I've actually tightened them up so now they don't come off and they're stuck on there. So yeah, this is sort of chaos at the moment. I've got to wait for everything to dry. I'll be dunking it again and mounting it in, so it will take around a couple of hours. So yeah. Okay, so also on the to-do list today is to check all the alignments and all the camber, just to make sure that they're all the same, or so it's not going to veer off and be completely uncontrollable using ye olde measuring device. So I'm just going to place that in one of the camber links. I'll place it on the other side. Turn this around so you can see, like that. Check the measurement, so that fits in there fine. So check the other side to make sure it's the same. A bit tricky, but and it's not. I don't know whether you can see that. Just zoom it in. Just there. That's the camber link just there. So you place that in, and it doesn't actually fit in the gap. So that means it needs adjusting. So let's do that now. Okay, so this is the camber link here. So as you can see, this is the measurement from the other side. That doesn't quite focus. Yeah, there you go. It doesn't quite fit in there. So I just need to widen that gap. A couple of turns. Make sure that fits in nearly. This is the thing about the Tamiya TL01 RA. It's got adjustable camber links. Not there yet. A couple more turns, and there you go. That fits in there perfectly. So that this width is the same width as the other side. So the camber is the same on both sides. Right, now to do the steering and front camber links. Just putting the rear suspension back together. Just a tad fiddly. There you go. Zoom you in so you can see. Adjusting. There we go. I remember this screw now. Longest screw on the car. Nearly there. Some people use drills, but if there's too much torque on the drill, it will strip out the thread inside the plastic. So there you go, that's tight. So now that distance there is the same as on the other side, just there. Just there. So that means the angle of the wheels, the camber, so zoom out a bit. So the wheel can be cambered in or cambered out like that. So it's exactly the same on both sides, and during the first running video, I'll see what it's like and I'll adjust accordingly whether I want it camber in or camber out. So now it's time for the front. Okay, so I've measured the gap on one side, just there, focus, sort of. So I'll just measure it quickly on this side. Camber link is just there, just here. So I just put this in there, and it does actually fit in. Can't really see it very well, but yes, it does fit in. So the camber is the same on both sides, so nothing to adjust there. Okay, so now it's time to check the front steering toe. You can adjust the toe on the front steering. Usually you have toe out so that it's more stable at in a straight line. So just measure that gap there, near there. So, and then expand it out. So that is measurement for one side. So now we flip the servo around and check the other side. It should be the same. I don't think I've adjusted it. Yeah, there you go. It's the same. Just zoom you in a little bit. Just there. So it is the same. So nothing to adjust in the steering. So yeah, steering's all sorted, and the camber. So I'll do an initial test run. I'll show you guys as well the initial first running of this car after the rebuild. So yeah, next. Okay, so the Plastidip is nearly dry. It's still a bit tacky, but it's dry at least. I've managed to put the receiver and the ESC just there. Big jumble of wires in there. It'll be a lot tidier when I'm finished. I'll do that off camera another time. Won't bore you guys to death with that now. I will also shorten the motor wires because they're a bit long, and it'll make it look a bit neater. Battery's also in and dry. So all that's left to do is put the wheels on, put the body on, and show you guys the final finished project. Final piece, the body. There we go, all finished, finally. There it is guys, the completed rally project. I've had a lot of fun building it, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I have another project lined up, but I shall release another video telling you about that later on. I want to thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next RC project. Bye!